Mr President, my question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Cormann, and it's about bracket creep. Unchecked, bracket creep will soon result in 1.8 million full-time workers being taxed at the second highest tax rate of 37 cents in the dollar. Over the next decade, single-income families will pay 60% more in income tax. Now, the Minister has said numerous times that the government will provide tax cuts to offset the impact of bracket creep. Without tax cuts, NATSEM, that's the National Centre for Social and Economic Modelling, estimates the government will receive an additional $25 billion in tax over the forward estimates due to bracket creep. The National Commission of Audit report assumed bracket creep tax revenue would be returned through tax cuts. What tax cuts will there be for Australian families, and when will they be announced?
Minister for Finance, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I thank Senator Day for that question. And the government is committed to lower income taxes to adjust for bracket creep. And I would refer Senator Day to the budget papers, where we actually disclose that very transparently. In particular, budget paper 1-1, and I also would refer you to budget paper, the same budget paper 3-6 and the chart 1 on 7-6. And the point I would make is, we are very mindful that bracket creep, left unchecked, will push more and more middle-income families into the higher tax brackets. And that is bad for economic growth, it's bad for jobs, and it is bad for living standards for middle-income families. And that is, of course, why that is another reason why we need to repair the budget mess that we've inherited. Now, under Labor, we were on a trajectory to $667 billion in debt in 2023-24 and rising. That was based on an assumption in their last budget that there would be no adjustment for bracket creep throughout that whole period. If there had been adjustment for bracket creep through that period, that debt figure would actually be $748 billion and rising. And of course, if I refer you in particular to the high-level statement in the budget overview, with the changes in our budget, debt would be $389 billion in a decade, $277 billion lower than the projection of $667 billion at MAIFO, and assuming future tax relief. There is more detail on that in the budget, but of course the important point here is, Mr President, for the government to be able to deliver on this, for the government to be able to provide tax relief for middle-income families, we need to be able to get the structural savings reforms through the Parliament. We can't deliver income tax relief for middle-income families as envisaged in the budget without the Senate passing the savings measures that are currently being held up because Labor is being so irresponsible.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering the question has expired. Senator Day, a supplementary question.
A supplementary question. The US, the UK and Canada all link income tax rates to inflation. Australian pensions and other payments are also linked to inflation. When will the government apply permanent indexation of income tax brackets so we are not relying on ad hoc adjustments?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, the first point I would make is that Senator Day is quite right that there is an expectation that a lot of government payments are indexed to inflation or above that. And that is, of course, one of the reasons why we have put forward the measure for regular indexation of the fuel excise. Because at the moment, fuel excise the value of the fuel excise is eroded through inflation, and of course the Greens now are the champions of regular reductions in the real value of the excise on fuel, and they're the champions of big oil. Now, I hear what you're saying, Senator Day. I think it's a suggestion that I would encourage you to put forward to the tax white paper review process so it can be considered along with other reform proposals and priorities. The important point here, though, is if we want to provide income tax relief, if we want to provide for a more competitive tax system where people across Australia have got better opportunity to get ahead, we need to do that from a position of fiscal strength. We need to do that from a position where we've got our spending under control.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Day, a final supplementary question.
Further supplementary. The Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper announced on 30th October income splitting to allow spouses to transfer up to $50,000 of income to each other, yielding up to $2,000 per annum in family tax credits. Australian experts have also indicated that workforce participation, particularly for women, will fall if bracket creep is not addressed. Given bracket creep's negative impact on families, will the government
Senator Day, the time for asking the question has expired.
income splitting for families?
Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Firstly, what I would say is I congratulate Senator Day for taking such a positive and constructive approach to building a stronger, more prosperous economy. This government is always open to good ideas. And I would certainly agree with Senator Day. It is very true to say that one of the structural economic challenges we're facing as a nation, one of the very serious structural economic challenges we're facing as a nation, is falling workforce participation rates on the back of an ageing population. And that is, of course, why in the budget we've got measures to ensure that young people who are healthy and well and who are able to work earn or learn. That is why we've got measures in the budget to ensure that Australians are working longer. That is why we've got measures in the budget to lift workforce participation by women. And look, I mean, I hear the suggestion that Senator Day is making, and we will, over the next few years, continue to build on our reform agenda as we are getting
Thank you,
some of our
Minister.
priorities
The time for answering the question has expired. Senator